Welcome to the Fireside. This is Vinyl Transmission, and we're here to talk about a really magic band. It's a July morning, just after midnight, and I'm so pleased to have you here by the Fireside. You'll notice, first of all, that I'm displaying the full Byron in honor of our subject tonight. When people come into the Fireside, naturally they ask about this. I have a glowing treasure chest right by my fireplace. They find it unusual. I'm used to it. This is my Uriah Heep records. It's sort of a magic box. I just call him Mick. Now, I hear what people say on the playground. Is Uriah Heep a magic band, or are they rock and roll dinosaurs? I invited you here for a friendly chat, so let's answer that question right up front. And I'm going to need your imagination and your help. I want you to think, put that in a question form, okay, and focus it. In as few words as possible, I want you to put it in my hands. That's right there. Right above the Uriah Heep records. I have it. Transmission port.
Open.
I don't know where the transmission is taking us this time. Oh my God.
Is this he who displays the full Byron?
You may know the answer. Uriah Heep is a magic band indeed. They are a magic band indeed, I think you'll agree. Well, let's begin our story. Tales of these always begin in glory. And the glory is in large part due to Mr. David Byron. So we're going to dedicate this video to him, and we're going to begin with having a toast. So please pull up your cushions, whatever makes life more pleasant where you are. We're going to have a real good time together. Appy Days. David Byron, The Golden Years. Here is the first album by Uriah Heep from 1970. This is David Byron on the cover, covered in cobwebs. You can see there's something ancient and eternal about this from day one. And this is still provocative to this day, and I would argue that this will be provocative for all time. The first song on here is called Gypsy. And when you hear that song, the organ and the guitar, they almost are like lashes. You hear those chords, they're like accusations. There's just a very primal feel to it. And then you have a song like Come Away Melinda. And this could almost be the character in the song who's speaking to his daughter about, I believe, the dead mother. And this could almost be him as an actor in character singing that song. And to tell you the truth, it's not a great song in anybody else's hands, but it is a great song here. David Byron is such an amazing singer. He is, I would say, to combine, he has a romantic quality, an epic quality in his voice, and a huge range. There was no limit to his voice. And we'll get to the American version here, where they included, forgive me if I'm wrong, if it's on the actual other one as well, because this discography is huge. But the song Bird of Prey. You have David Byron, Bird of Prey. Bird of Prey I think of as the as the vocal capabilities of Uriah Heep, which is unlike any other band. David Byron, if there's anyone on his par, it would be Rob Halford. I can't think of anyone else who can both croon and be epic and has a huge range. That's the only comparison that comes to mind. What Rob Halford didn't have was the bird of prey behind him. And that's true from Uriah Heep, from this record till today. They have the best vocal attack in hard rock. Salisbury. Now this is the second album. This is the American version of the cover. And this is, you have to understand how fast they were doing these. This came so hot on the heels. I think in a 6-year period that we're looking at, the amount of work they did was just incredible. This has one of their best songs on it, one of their most timeless songs, Lady in Black. And it's an amazing track. The last track on here is called Salisbury, and it's I've read an interview with Ken Hensley, who is the main writer in the band and the core poet, really, that guides the vision of it. And even today, Uriah Heep's set list is based primarily on the Ken Hensley material. And he's a magical writer, as we'll see. The last song on here, Salisbury, I read an interview with him, and that really is not, is sort of trying to go into a progressive territory. It's longer than 10 minutes, I think, and they hardly ever played it live after that. That's really not their forte, in my opinion. But what is a song like Lady in Black. So I'm going to read this to you, and you'll forgive me because I was exiled from the theater as a young person. I had ruined a play by some nobody named Dickens. I'm going to read this to you. Lady in Black. She came to me one morning, one lonely Sunday morning, her long hair flowing in the midwinter wind. I know not how she found me, for in darkness I was walking, and destruction lay around me from a fight I could not win. She asked me, name my foe then. I said the need within some men to fight and kill their brothers without thought of love or God. And I begged her give me horses to trample down my enemy. So eager was my passion to destroy this waste of life. But she would not think of battle that reduces men to animals, so easy to begin and yet impossible to end. For she, the mother of all men, who counseled me so wisely then, I feared to walk alone again, and asked if she would stay. O lady, lend your hand outright. O let me rest here at your side. Have faith and trust and peace, she said, filled my heart with life. There is no strength in numbers. Have no such misconception. But when you need me, be assured, I won't be far away. Thus having spoken, she turned away, and though I found no words to say, I stood and watched until I saw her black cloak disappear. My labor is no easier, but now I know I'm not alone. I'll find new heart each time I think upon that windy day. And if one day she comes to you, drink deeply from her words so wise. Seek courage from her as her prize. And say hello for me to the Lady in Black. The third release by Uriah Heep is called Look at Yourself. And it's an amazing record. King Diamond, for one, I think has mentioned that that's his favorite record of all time. And in regards especially to David Byron being his favorite vocalist and the achievement of the vocals on that record. It's an amazing record. The cover was a provocative idea to get you to actually look at yourself. I don't know that cover really did them any favors because it really looked beat up over the years and everything. But that is, I'm going to kind of give it short shrift only because I don't have a copy of it here to show you. But it's an amazing record. It's one that I intend to dig deeper on. And that actually concludes the first part of the David Byron Golden which is really focused on the heavier side of the band. Look at Yourself is heavy. Salisbury is heavy. Very heavy, very humble is just an amazing, as I said, primeval, medieval, blues, fantastic singing, the crooning of Byron, the bird of prey, their vocal attack, incredible songwriting that's still amazing today and will be forever. That's just the first part of this epic story. The next part is David Byron, Golden Years, Part 2. This is the one that you may know, and for good reason. This is really perfect from beginning to end. The vocals, here they really shift into a much more soft, psychedelic, classic rock sound. And this defines sort of the second era. This is more the flavor of where they are today, although they dip back into the catalog, but this is just classic. This has The Wizard, Traveler in Time, Easy Livin', Poet's Justice, Rainbow Demon, All My Life, Paradise, The Spell, Circle of Hands. This just couldn't be more beautiful. And it really captures the amazing vision of Ken Hensley as a writer. So we've talked about Ken Hensley, we've talked about David Byron. Mick Box is the third part of really the biggest, the trio that oversees the Heep legacy, if you will. This is the inside of this. Mick Box is the guitar player, known for playing a Les Paul through a Crybaby, a wah-wah pedal, and he is known for that sound. And when I think of Mick Box, I think of a grin, and I think of a Les Paul guitar. And today, he is the one original member still left in the band, and has guided the legacy this whole time, and is just great. He is dedicated to the song and the elevation of that. He's not a show off at all, but he's just masterminded the band through all their different changes, all their different sounds. The Magician's Birthday Party. This is really as perfect as Demons and Wizards. This does have the title track, Magician's Birthday, like the song Salisbury, is a bit of an overreach on the time that it clocks in at. Again, it's not something that they've revisited a ton live. With that one exception, this is absolutely a perfect record. With the continuing of the magic of Demons and Wizards. Ken Hensley, Mick Box, Gary Thane, I hope I'm right about that, David Byron, I'm looking at these upside down, of course. This is the classic lineup, which also includes Lee Kerslake. Lee Kerslake, Gary Thane, Mick Box, Ken Hensley, David Byron. The final part of the golden era here also includes the live album. These were released on the same day. That is, this album, Sweet Freedom, and Uriah Heep's live album were released at least the same month. And this is only 3 years in. Both of those were released in '73. So they've put out 6 albums, 6 studio albums. They've put out a double live album that's, one of the most highly regarded. And this is one, I showed you that I don't have Look at Yourself. This is one that you may not know about that is a superior record. It may have been overshadowed by that live album. You're going to know the hit on here, Stealing, which is fantastic. I mean, Ken Hensley's material just brings you into such an imaginative world. That song, it's about premarital sex, and it's just a fun song. But he is really raking himself over the coals. That's what the chorus is. I was stealing when I should have been buying. And what a song, what a vibe, what a feel. The rest of this is fantastic. The song Dreamer, One Day, Sweet Freedom, what a what a song. What a concept. What a amazing. You know, this cover is red and glowing. It's like a red wine, isn't it? And I think that's Heep's legacy. I'll show the cover. We're just going to celebrate here with this gatefold. This is the classic lineup. You know, Uriah Heep is still rocking today. David Byron, Gary Thane, Mick Box, Lee Kerslake, Ken Hensley. Okay, this next era is the final 3 albums with David Byron, consisting of Wonderworld, Return to Fantasy, High and Mighty. These are great records. There's a lot of great songs on them. The focus isn't there as much. And you know, they're experimenting with different songwriters, different collaborations, which they always have and often produces great results. Here, I think pressures from the record company and just confusion about direction and the haze of, let's face it, this is 1970s classic rock. This is, you know, the era of drugs and confusion and all of that. But these are great records. I'm going to give them a little bit of short shrift just in this era, just to keep things going along. But Wonderworld, Return to Fantasy, they have some amazing material. Some of it very heavy, some of it very experimental, some of it unlike anything else that you'll hear, where they just do strange things. I'm thinking of High and Mighty in particular. If you love different production and different sounds, man, they wear so many different faces on that record, and it sort of shows really, you know, not that they had too few ideas, but that they had too many. And sadly, this ends the David Byron era. David Byron would be gone, sadly, within not that many years after this. And he was amazing. You know, I asked myself the what if he had gone on to become a singer of Sabbath or Rainbow? That's the kind of caliber of singer. Just to mention a little bit, now he did make some solo records that are really kind of suffer from the same thing we just discussed on these 3. At least in it commercially. I'm not making a value judgment really on the music because I've heard them, but I haven't dug deep on them. And hopefully I will have some fireside time to do just that. Okay. The next era of the band sees the singer John Lawton from Lucifer's Friend come into the band. Fantastic singer, really continued the legacy practically seamlessly, and that's a huge task in terms of, you know, he's an amazing singer. He has a rougher edge. The arc of time over Uriah Heep's singers is more towards pop and towards a softer sound. So he's sort of the last guy to maybe be as heavy or as close to as heavy as David Byron. But these are some great records. I'm talking about Firefly, I'm talking about Innocent Victim, I'm talking about Fallen Angel. And those are all great records. Again, is any of those as classic 100% as some of the golden era? Perhaps not, but lots of great tracks in them. I'm just going to focus on this one record for this era, and I definitely encourage you to explore all of John Lawton's material. He's done a lot over the years. You know, this cover is a cool cover. Is it a cover that's going to as classic as some of the other ones and conveying the music? I say that because here, you know, 2 great songs on here are the band is almost too diverse in some ways. Free and Easy is a song written by Lawton and Box. That is so heavy. You know, that is in the contender for songs that, you know, invented double bass and a thrash style approach. That is one of the songs that is mentioned as being hugely influential in that sound. That's a great song. And then you have a Hensley track, Free Me. And check that one out, because that's you know, a beautiful Hensley song, you know, a soul inside a body, and struggling for beauty and freedom, and, you know, all those magical Uriah Heep things. John Lawton, a magic era, great albums. Introducing John Sloman as lead vocalist for the band, who only did one album, but he is an amazing singer. He's unlike the other singers. He's got an amazing vibration to his voice. He sounds like he could sing jazz. He's just super fluid, really a unique singer, and it's a good record. Commercially, it ended the band. I mean, the story continues after this, but it's a story of a phoenix rising from the flames, because they die right here. Ken Hensley is gone after this album. Everyone, many of the classic, it's all gone. It's Mick Box alone. And but this album is excellent, and I intend to dig deeper on both him as a singer and this record. I've been amazed in listening to it, just really how good it is. It's unique in their catalog. It suffers same of the other late period that we're just kind of coming out of. But what a great vocalist. And that is Conquest and Conquered. And here is Abominog. This album resurrected the band and created a great record that if you haven't heard it, I really encourage you to check it out. Now, it's a little deceptive. You might think, this came out at the era of Sabbath, Priest, Saxon, all these other bands that really defined a heavy sound at that time. And Uriah Heep was really actually going in another direction. And all appearances would kind of indicate otherwise, commercially and so forth. They opened for Judas Priest on the Screaming for Vengeance tour. This was the very first concert I ever saw. These were the very first weirdos I ever saw on stage with guitars and acting very weird. It was an amazing show with Judas Priest and Uriah Heep. I did learn something that night, and I was told that Marshall amplifiers smell sweet and smoky. That turned out to be a lie. It was a great show. Peter Goalby becomes the singer in the band. He does 3 albums with them, and he's a great singer, a lot of personality, a great voice. The albums had diminishing, hugely commercial returns, and he only did 3 albums. This is certainly the best by far. This is magic. It's not as heavy metal as those other classic artists I mentioned, but this is album-orientated rock, and the songs are fantastic. I'm thinking of Iron Maiden Revelations. If you think of the part where Bruce Dickinson does that beautiful sort of romantic spiel in there about seeing the tears and the light on her lips and so forth. This really has that kind of feel through it, and it combines synthesizers with the rock sound. It is still heavy. It's a classic. It sounds really great. Too Scared to Run, On the Rebound, Chasing Shadows, Prisoner, Sell Your Soul. This is the album with Russ Ballard doing one of the songwritings. And this is one of the cases where they did some of the material. They had outside songwriters. The big thing I haven't mentioned, actually, about this record, and we'll end the David Byron era with this, or rather the Peter Goalby era. Here is who came back into the band at this time was 2 guys, Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, hot off their stint with Blizzard of Oz. And it has occurred to me over the years, of course it didn't occur to me at the time, they were at the top of their game creatively. I think I've heard both guys say that their time with Randy Rhoads was the best time of their lives. Randy Rhoads died the year that this came out. They were on the height of things with Randy creatively and commercially. And then by the time this came out, not only was Randy Rhoads dead, but the second Ozzy album had come out with all songs that these guys wrote, Lee and Bob, and there was a different faces on it and different credits, and not to mention later for them to be erased from the recordings. So it kind of makes the moment bittersweet, or just poignant, or just more confusing, more grown up certainly than it was at that moment. Just kind of consider their positions at that time, because they're amazing musicians, and that that shows it. And that's my first rock and roll show. I can't complain. And here we are with the Bernie Shaw era of the band. It's a feel-good heritage era. He's done quite a number of studio albums with them. The first album he did was this Live in Moscow. This is an amazing recording. It's sort of the Disneyland version of the band. It's poppy, it's airy, it's of the era. It really takes you to the time and the place. But this is sort of the cotton candy version, which I like a lot. It's just classic of the era. They tackle some of the Abominog material with Bernie Shaw on it. I'm extremely fond of the Abominog album, and to hear it continued into the Bernie Shaw era is just great. The first studio album with Bernie is Raging Silence. I go back and forth on this. You know, I can love the 80s cheese of this, and I can find it just intolerable as well. They cover Argent on this. They do Hold Your Head Up. It's a different style of songwriting. It's kind of silly, but it's quirky in their own way, and it has its charms. The next album I don't have to show. It's called Different World. I think that one was produced by Trevor Bolder, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of the same thing, a little bit, not commercially successful for them. There are good songs on it, which I've heard them do live later, and that's good stuff. Here they move into Uriah Heep, Sea of Light. This is sort of the pop progressive side, if you will, like a late mature Yes. There are beautiful songs on this. At this point in the band, there's a guy named Phil Lanzon who's writing with Mick Box a lot, and he sort of becomes the later Ken Hensley as far as the peace and the love and all the great, really ethos of Uriah Heep that goes through everything. From that first anti-war song, "Come Away Melinda," right till today. That's just a big part of the band's legacy. And this is enjoyable. It's a little bit, the songwriting might not be as on fire as you would like. Here, I think they really got a great mix. Now, I'll admit this might be a sentimental favorite. This is sort of more acoustic-y and ballady with some of the soft psych. But I like this a lot. I've heard them do live songs from this too. This is definitely worth checking out if you like that era of the band, of sort of the pastoral side and that type. This is the best studio album by Bernie Shaw era. There's a 10-year gap between what I just showed you and the new one. And they really hit it out of the park with this. This is an amazing record. And this is called Wake the Sleeper. This was 10 years in between records. This is really comparable to the rebirth of Saxon, if you know that band, and how they just kept hitting out great records late in their career. They're still at it. Uriah Heep stepped right in as legends with this. This is great. If you don't know about it, check it out. This is really great. The songwriting is great. Trevor Bolder is in here. They do have a new drummer at this time, Russell Gilbrook, and he does a great job stepping in. It's really heavy. It's their classic sound. Their songwriting is fantastic. They've done a ton of live. They've done a ton of concerts after this. We're going to get to that at the end. I have a lot of special releases to talk about. The next thing they did sounds kind of strange, but it was very successful. This is called Celebration. And what they did was they re-recorded a lot of the tracks with some of the newer ones, but they did it live in the studio. Now, as much as I love their golden eras and all those recordings, they can sound a tiny bit dated. This is great, and this is the live machine. I think of the Millennium Falcon up in the air. That's what this is like. The Bird of Prey is definitely off the ground and lifted, and it's the Bernie Shaw era. The recording's immaculate. It's fantastic. I was really glad that they did this. Not angry or disappointed that they did it. It's a really quality product. Next up is their studio album. This one is called Into the Wild. Now, this is a little bit more diminishing returns. This is Trevor Bolder's, sadly, his last album with the group as he died. But this is a great record. There's some heavy parts on it, but there's sort of the pop feel starts creeping in, and there's like stepping away from, I'm not sure what direction they're really going in. They even have a song in here, which I like, T-Bird Angel, but it sort of sounds like a Beach Boys song. which is just kind of strange. Still very successful. This is their latest album, Outsider, and this is takes another step towards the pop direction. I really liked this when it first came out, and then I just sort of set it aside, and in my mind, thought I didn't like it. But when I played it again, I did like it, and that's no surprise. I mean, they're a magic band. So the final part of this video, we're going to tackle special releases, and there's some great ones. So stay tuned for this. Stay tuned for this last part. I know I've been talking quite a while, but there's some wonderful things to share with you here. This is called Acoustically Driven, and this is the jewel of the Bernie Shaw era. These are live recordings. There's also a CD in here where they do an amazing set list. They have backup singers, add-on musicians. They have Ian Anderson comes in and plays flute, and it's amazing. The set list they really choose from the orchestration. In other words, with the materials at hand of the backup singers and everyone, they choose the most lyrical, poetic, beautiful, pastoral Heep selections that there are, along with the classics, and they just hit it out of the park. If you don't know about this, this is the golden album. This is the last CD that would ever leave my possession. Uriah Heep has a lot of best of collections, and it's very confusing. And this is endorsed by the band and has their extended stamp of approval. It's completely mislabeled. It's completely erroneous what it's called. It's called remasters. That's not what it is. What it is fantastic. It's the rehearsal sessions for Acoustically Driven, and I'm so glad they put this out. So it's the live concert, it's the rehearsal in the studio, and I'm glad to hear it a lot. This is a live video of the Magician's birthday party. This they bring back Lawton, they bring back Hensley. They all have a party on stage. Spellbinder. This just happens to be a great live album with Bernie Shaw at the helm, and it's really good. A little bit of a stretching out of the set list, which is what I look for in their recordings, but it's a hot one. This is also great. This is a collection of singles. Now, and I'll really point this out because they have a terror of best ofs, and you hardly know where to go with it. This is great. This is singles, A's and B's. You'll hear things that you haven't heard. There's bonus versions here. You get to hear John Sloman tackle the Peter Goalby era. So if you've been paying attention, that might mean something at this time. But it's great. There's a couple songs at the end that are so much of the commercial side that it almost makes the whole CD crack. But the rest of it is great. There's a song on here called Sunshine, and wow, it sounds amazing on here. And it's a song only Heep could perform. The final thing is not Heep, but this is called Blackmore's Night. And this has a version of Lady in Black. And what a compliment after all these years. Ritchie Blackmore covers Ken Hensley. And this is a beautiful interpretation of the song. I don't mind at all that Blackmore is doing this stuff now. He does do some beautiful solos on this. And it's fantastic. It's a celebration of Heep, which is really what I hope this video has been. Well, I've spent the whole night talking about Uriah Heep, but I'm so glad that you came. And, before we go, I can actually see the sunshine coming up outside. It's, morning has come upon us. But why don't we go take a walk in the wizard's backyard? I didn't tell you, but he lives very near to here. And I often take a walk up there. I reflect on the wizard's words. Everyone should be happy. Everyone's got to be happy. And everyone should sing. We're just at the trailhead. This is where we're going to go, right up there.